Welcome to another episode of Chat's Chat. Join Chad Chilius and me, Dax Castro, where each week we wax poetic about document accessibility topics, tips, and the struggle of remediation and compliance. So sit back, grab your favorite mug of whatever, and let's get started.
Welcome to the Chat's Chat podcast. This is a very unique podcast. This is an emergency podcast that we are doing. And I'm bringing on our good friend Dax is out photographing the universe right now. So we are here with a couple of my very favorite colleagues. We have my good colleague Marty Malloy joining us, as well as Judith Risch, who you just heard a few days ago on the podcast. And we're having her back because we have some really exciting news to share with all of you. So I'm not going to steal your thunder, Judy. Please go ahead and take it away and explain to our audience why we're doing this podcast today.
Let's preface, we were trying to time our recording last session with what we thought was coming what we thought DOJ was going to mess with the regulation. Like a week before the deadline is a great time to mess with the regulation, isn't it? Like I'm totally on board. Like you've had, they've been here. One of us probably knows how many days this has been going on, but this morning they dropped, and it won't be official till Monday, a year extension on the regulations, which is, it's news. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. It just is, in my opinion. Like, I know, and we all know this, we know what everybody's been trying to get done in the public space. They're not making it. We need that extension. And I'm not, like, for their sake, for the people who've been engaged, or the people who realized in January, like, we need to do this. I think the extension's a great thing, but kicking the can down the road, I don't know if it's really going to improve access that much. And like, it's right. We need to get, whatever, but it's what's going on. They're giving a 60-day period to put comments in about this, which I don't anticipate that part of it changing. It's like a 30-page document. And it's, you only need to read about 15 of them because it's double spaced and there are a lot of footnotes. So it's not that as long as it sounds. But they're also, they're saying they're considering doing a new regulation. And I think that's concerning into itself. Like they're talking about rewriting the reg. I'm flipping into my notes so I can actually have a more meaningful conversation.
Judith, can I jump in just for a quick question on, I think listeners will be, and viewers will be wondering, should I comment? Like, is that something people should take seriously in your experience from when you've been there? Or is that something where the train is moving at a pace? Sure, but I don't know that's good. What opinions here? So
sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so, okay, let me say one thing. Your extension for those 50,000 and over entities, we're now in a 2-year extension. They're pushing it out to 2028 for the other ones.
Sure.
So should you comment? Yeah, you should always comment. This is like, this is our part of democracy. And we know the comments made a huge difference the last go round. And if for no other reason, not the part I really want to say, because I don't want to get into this, but if we have those comments, they can actually be a basis of litigation of why the regulation is bad. Because we get evidence, like we see summaries of comments, we get evidence of the comments people submit in the record. You can see them. I can see them. We can all see them. So if a whole bunch of people put in comments and say, this is really off, then we can go in and say, look, they ignored a whole bunch of things. They have to refute every comment. So we saw in the last round of comments that we went from, for example, the original draft regulation had a 5-day possibility of remediating your online classes as an exemption. So online classes were exempt and you just had to make them accessible in 5 business days or something like that. And they took that comment out. They took that exemption out because of the comments from the higher ed community, because they're like, you're either going to need to give us way more time or get rid of this because we can't do it. Like 5 days for some classes is no problem. I'm not concerned, but 5 months isn't enough time for some of them because we have vendors and textbook accessibility. So I think, So I think commenting, there's not much we can control. I think commenting is really important. I don't know how much comments will play in here, but I think you need to do it because it's a good way to, if nothing else, to vent where you disagree or where you agree. Like there are a few things in this 30-page document that agree with. But I think it's really important to think about. One of the things they talked a lot about that's really disturbing, and there are two places I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this with you all. Their first comment was, it sounded like AI and generative AI can't remediate stuff very effectively. And it talks about that. And I'm like, we never talked about AI. Like, AI was never on the table. I don't advise anybody to use AI as your only remedial solution in the digital accessibility space. That's insanity to me.
But Judy, in the context of where we are as a society right now, right? Everybody is jumping on this AI bandwagon, thinking that AI is the silver bullet to all of their problems, right? Yeah. Now, again, that's a whole other discussion I don't want to get into right now.
Right.
But you and I know the reality of that, right? And so like to think that AI could properly tag a document, I mean, sure, that's like utopia, right? But it just doesn't exist, right? AI is dumb fundamentally, right? Like AI does not know how to tag a document.
AI is an intern. Someone said this week. I heard it. I think this is brilliant. Is an intern or a teenager doing something. We're going to trust but verify. Like, I would never tell AI to write something and not read it and edit it 6 times before. The craziest stories, I wrote a conference, I'll admit this, I wrote a conference proposal once on AI, like, because it actually does a good job on that. It actually isn't terrible, but like, you have to read it and edit it. Then it gives me the citations. It hallucinated articles that I supposedly wrote. It was hallucinating to me. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Listen, my wife is a teacher and her students are using AI to do their homework and to do exams, right? And it's a huge problem for her, right? I mean, and I jokingly said to her one time, I'm like, if any of their responses ever use the word therefore, it was AI. Right. Like, let's be real. Right. You know what I mean? Like 8th graders are not using the word therefore in any of their conversations. So yeah. And I want to pause real quickly. If anybody is jumping in right now, I highly encourage you to go back and watch our previous podcast where we kind of set up this podcast in a way. We talk about Title II. We didn't know any of this information then, but we kind of give a really good foundation about Title II, what it means for everybody, and then come back and watch this one because now we're kind of doing a deep dive into like the changes that they've made.
And so let's start there. So because we really jumped in, and my fault for asking a question really quickly, but Judith, can you start with just explaining what is happening with it? Like, let's just do the absolute baseline of what is coming out of the DOJ right now.
So the DOJ, in short answer, like there's a 30-page document out there. It's in draft. Monday, it's officially published, which is not anything uncommon. They did this with these actual regs when they'll release them in 2023 for notice and comment. They did it again in 2024 when they actually released them, but they're going in and they're granting a year extension. That on its face, and they're reasoning it, and the reasoning is interesting. And then it becomes a 30-page document that gives you the reasoning and what they're considering. And as we jumped, so that's what's going on. They're giving us a year for organizations over 50,000. They're giving us a year extension a week before the deadline.
And then institutions that are below 50,000, they get a 2-year extension.
2 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and they talked a bunch in the beginning. It's just funny to me about like how we've had a lot of comments and we've asked people how long they really need. And like, I'll say this comfortably, regs are 25 years too late. I'll own it. Like, we should have done this in 2000. Yeah. I don't think any of us were in this industry in 2000, so it's really easy for us to point fingers at back and what people were doing in 2000.
Right.
And so, like, they're 25 years, 26 years too late. So let's just say that. But we have a lot to get through and a lot to do. But at some point, we just have to say we've got to be compliant. How long do we get? Are we going to give another 25 years for compliance?
Right. I mean, we've felt the urgency. And I appreciate those organizations, those public entities that are showing a level of urgency. And if it took this deadline to sort of raise consciousness up to this point, I'm here for it. And as you alluded to earlier, like, And for some that are really trying and starting their roadmaps and working diligently, I'm glad they might have some of that temperature lessened on them. The doers have some of that temperature lowered on them from leaders and others who are saying, no, everything must meet. But on the flip side of it, hey, 25 years and counting, go back to 74. People with disabilities have been waiting a long time for equal protection.
Yep.
Like, come on. And so none of this is new. I want to reiterate that. Sorry, good Chad. Go ahead.
Well, and so, in light of what we, in the previous podcast, we talked about, and I said, like, listen, guys, right, this deadline is coming. Title II is not meant to be this big, scary monster that we're all supposed to be like cowering, oh no, this thing, right? Get your feet wet now. Start doing it now. Make some progress, right? So, Judy, in light of this new extension, right? So now the deadline is not in 8 days. The deadline is now a year and 8 days away, right? Do we change? Do we change our guidance for people?
No.
Right? I mean, would you agree? Like, the guidance is still the same, right? It's just that now you've got a little bit more time to invest in getting your people trained, right? Proper training, right? Giving them guidance on how to make content accessible. And now it's a little bit easier for everybody to achieve. Would you agree?
Well, and I want to point out there are two things I have like paragraphs highlighted I want to just put into the conversation here. And one of them is about that. Yes, I absolutely think stay the course. There's a paragraph where it's really important. And I'm trying. So there's this paragraph. I'm going to read a whole paragraph because I think it's really important. I'll cut parts out. While the statement, I'm paraphrasing that part of it, limited to extending the 2024 rules compliance dates, the department plans to engage in future rulemaking processes related to the substantive requirements of the 2024 rule. So here they're actually telling us they're going to go in and they're planning on updating the rule. Now, I know, I have some sense of the staff that's left in DOJ. I'm not sure they have the staff even to do a full rulemaking because it's really labor intensive. It's a hard thing to do. But during this extension period, the department will consider issuing a notice of proposed rulemaking for members of the public and an opportunity to comment on that and any proposed changes. However, and it goes on to say, because to me, if they have that statement, I'd be like, okay, stop what you're doing. This isn't anything we need to worry about. I don't agree with a word I just said when I talk about stopping what we're doing. But it says, and if the department doesn't issue such, the rule and circumstances of further delay of the deadline do not exist, the department fully anticipates implementing on the new deadline. And then it says, and it's really important to remember this, and this is why I always said this reg doesn't really matter in my head. Especially in the education space where I focus a lot of my work, we have 504 also where it says if you take federal funding, you have to meet, you can't discriminate. Some requirements Title II. But it says, regardless of the compliance dates, covered entities have an ongoing obligation to ensure their services, programs, and activities offered using web content and mobile apps are accessible to individuals with disabilities in accordance with their existing obligations under Title II of the ADA. I would also say that's under 504, you have those obligations for anybody receiving federal funding. So I don't think it really is changing. And I've always said this, I didn't think the rule changed except to the extent that it comes out and says, you must meet WCAG, sort of. That was what it meant. And these are words, and I'm so happy to be talking to tech people who get WCAG. Like, if we weren't here recording, I would have taken a whole bunch of phone calls this morning. My texts have been blowing up all morning, and I've just been focused on reading 30 pages to get on the phone with you all and have this conversation. Because I want the public to have as accurate information as you can. And we all agree. Like, none of us are saying anything. Like, there's never a time where I'm like, what are those people saying? Like, we all agree on this.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear,
Absolutely.
But there's one other paragraph I want to read and have a conversation about that I don't think most people are going to pick up. So it says here, when it's talking about WCAG, what it says is the website links are dynamically changeable websites for compliance for standards with WCAG 2.1. The dynamic compliance assessment standard does not provide notice of a regulation that requires public entity to use a standard that may change at any time without notice. What they're saying is that WCAG 2.1 could change at any time without notice to anybody, and that would be a violation of the Administrative Procedures Act, like the processes you're supposed to do. Your face is is priceless.
Well, I'm not sure. Yeah,
has WCAG ever retroactively gone back and changed any of their guidelines, right? Like we're currently in WCAG 2.2.
Did WC3 ever go back and change 2.1 or 2. Have they ever changed a standard retroactively? Like I haven't paid attention. I know WCAG, don't get me wrong, but mine is more usability and functionality because my experience. So that's why I was excited that provision alone, like telling me we can change WCAG 2.1. Well, it happens to be on a live website. Are you saying we could just change it?
Yeah, that's
faces are priceless.
Well, I think there's a few. I have a few things to dive into on this front, and I'm actually very reluctant to do so, because I think it speaks to the fact that there are probably, as you mentioned, some really smart, diligent, incredible people at the DOJ and people that are working in really good faith. But it also feels like, one, there aren't as many that we know of. And two, I think you put a lot of faith in 504. Well, we saw attacks on 504, like strong attacks on 504, and this administration walking away from active lawsuits by Republican states' attorneys general. So it makes me wonder, like, is all of this just ways in which to continue to weaken offices of civil rights legislation in general, to keep creating flexibility and things like that allow people to ignore equal access to content and information? Yeah. I mean, that's frustrating.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to also, and one of the other things I think you're hinting at also, and when I'm reading the document, having been inside the government, and I know things happen and different voices get listened to in different contexts, and we know how the listening sessions were taken, and the document does go in and lay out like who kind of said what. It doesn't specifically cite people, but I believe we talked about this. I've talked about it a few times this week, but I think we talked about this on Monday. The Small Business Administration was showing up in those listening meetings when they were talking about this emergency rule, but it only showed up in the first 2 meetings. It never showed up in any of the subsequent meetings. So it showed up in the meetings for the League of Cities and the Minnesota League of Cities, and I believe the League of Counties was clumped in there. But they showed up in those 2 meetings, but they didn't show up at NFB, an Autism Society, another state blind association for people who are blind. Our friend who's the good witch of digital accessibility, Glenda Sims' meeting, had a meeting. I know other people in higher ed, other people we know had meetings, and they didn't show up in those meetings. They only showed up in that League of Cities and the Minnesota League of Cities and the League of Cities meetings. And then they cited a lot to the education community and like their concerns. And there was only one meeting of the 22 meetings that happened. And that was it was AASA, American Association of Superintendents, something like that's their name, I believe but I know that was the only one. And they were talking about the challenges for K-12 and how K-12 can't do this. And I'm just like, K-12 hasn't even tried to do this. I mean, there are some districts engaged. I don't want to say this is an overall rule, but K-12 is a place that, like, if somehow there were people in K-12 who want to talk about this and work on this, call me. I'm here. Like, I was a special ed teacher. I really care about K-12 education. I think it's one of the greatest assets in this country. And I don't think they're doing enough in the digital accessibility space. And then now they're coming in and saying, no, we can't do this. And so, but I don't feel like there was a lot of voices in there or what was listened to.
Yeah, I think from the beginning of this podcast to now, I think one of the takeaways for anyone watching and listening is voices matter. Your voice matters. There are a lot of stakeholders and competitive stakeholders in this process. And I want to acknowledge that. I mean, again, there are a lot of municipalities that we've been talking to. There are a lot of higher ed institutions that we've been talking to and places that are working really hard to understand this and do the right thing. And that's amazing. There are a lot of people with disabilities that need not just places like the NFB, but other advocacy groups to be a voice and to continue to be a voice, and that really matters. And then, just like with digital accessibility in general and the ADA in general, case law matters. And I'm in a weird spot because I don't want to see folks being predatory with the case law, but at the same time, if that's something that can move things forward, the risk and that risk tolerance for organizations and entities matters. Anyway, so it is competing, and that's really important. So people should lend their voices to this process is my big takeaway.
I mean, I'll say this, there are like 3,000 or 5,000 digital accessibility cases at Office for Civil Rights at the Department of Ed, when I worked there. I mean, it changed the trajectory of my life, and in a good way. Like, I'm sitting here talking about this because I was very happy to be doing more traditional disability work. But this is where my career and my life has moved to, and it does matter on some level, but kind of saying we can't do it, just like raising our hands and saying we need to hire people and not even having tried is really upsetting. That's like a really upsetting place. And I'm not going to say I disagree with the extension. I don't want to say like the extension's all bad. It just is. I'm not going to say I think it's wrong or I think it's right. I'm going to say it is. But I am also going to say further messing with the reg, I'm concerned about, because I see a lot of people just saying, then let's just stop everything we're doing and see what they do, because we'll get another extension in a year. And that's not.
No.
Well, and I mean, as you pointed out before, Judith, I mean, not that this is going to happen, but like, even if Title II were to go away tomorrow, right? Like, that's not going to prevent lawsuits, right? Like it's not like Title II is what's enabling these lawsuits to occur, right? Like, they're going to happen regardless of, even regardless of Section 504 or Section 508, right? These lawsuits could still occur.
Oh,
so
we'd be turning to state law more, but yeah. And I want to say though, and I think, and I'm reflecting on your first question, Marty, of the public comments, is it worth it? I think it is, because you mentioned the constitutional challenge to 504. I was just reading an update. They have a summary judgment hearing in a couple of weeks, early May. I don't remember the details. But I'm also going to say a bunch of the states have dropped out of that case. It's down. The issues have changed a little bit. A bunch of states have dropped out. And I know people who've talked to attorney generals in some of those states that have dropped out. So I think that public outcry, and then again, this administration tried to tinker with the physical accessibility standards in the Department of Energy's 504 regulation, and the public outcry and public advocacy, I think, also chilled that action. Now it got kicked, and it was supposed to have an implementation date, I think, in March, about a month ago, and nothing has happened, so we don't know it's kind of this weird time right now. But again, that public outcry stopped it. And that specific one is an interesting counterpoint to our conversation, even because the people, the entities that are covered by that regulation are saying, wait, time out, we want these standards here. It is much easier to comply with a physical accessibility requirement if you give me a cognizable standard. And in the digital space, I think that's true too. Even if WCAG somehow changes, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't change. But WCAG changes, I think, giving us a cognizable standard with a bunch of safe harbors and exemptions, because we're not always going to be perfect, which is we've got, I think is the best way, because at least it sets the bar somewhere rather than not telling us where the bar is and then being held to a bar we don't even know the answer for.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I've heard, any listeners of this podcast, and I am one of them, I count myself very much among them, and anyone who knows you, we speak a very similar language of some accessibility is better than no accessibility. Usability matters. Let's keep driving towards really quality user experience. Think about who you're serving and what you're trying to do, and make some progress. Because while it can feel overwhelming and confusing when you look at it in totality, hey, let's just start taking some steps. And that's real. I've heard both of you talk about that consistently, and it resonates, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, and we're not talking about like climbing Everest steps. Like, we're talking about very basic things, I mean, Dax and I say this all the time. I mean, Microsoft Word is a great example. I could give you 5 things to do in Word that are going to increase the accessibility of your document exponentially, right? I'm not asking you to freaking learn rocket science or do something like ridiculously difficult. It's like very, very basic fundamental things have a huge improvement. Yeah.
I think that's a great, could be a great spot to leave it, because those are things where, kind of watch this space. We will continue to talk with experts like Judith, this is really, really important. Keep listening to places like Jack's Chat and other really great folks that are putting wonderful information out there. There's a lot of information, sources. So let's all kind of keep taking positive steps in the right direction.
Well, and I think I'm going to piggyback on what Chad said. I think that, and both of you are saying, I think this isn't changing anything for us. I think we all need to just keep moving forward, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that marathon we're in. And I think if we even for people that aren't covered by these regulations, you're just watching because it's interesting, or, what's going to keep us up tonight or kind of ruin our weekends, right? But what we're going to say here is that it's about moving forward. So at least if you're not doing anything, take those 5 quick tips that you can start improving your Word documents this month and change those habits and behaviors. Then take the 5 tips and move them into your PowerPoints and start doing that next month. And you know what? In the next 3 years, you're going to be in a much better place, because documents don't stay forever. We replace stuff. Mm-hmm. So this is about slow but steady progress. Now, with deadlines, we have to move faster. So I'm pushing people faster these days. But when I get in with my private entity clients that aren't covered, my private universities, we get the luxury of that time. And we get the luxury of okay, we're going to start here and we're going to spend a month focusing on color, marketing color, doing all that kind of stuff. And it's really, So I think it's slow but steady on this. And it's progress over perfection. Again and again, we're going to say it. We'll all say it.
Yep. So, some accessibility is better than no accessibility. And, what I would encourage companies to do is put on your radar, get some training for your people, right? Teach them how to do it correctly, because again, figuring out on your own can lead you down a rabbit hole of misinformation. So again, and again, obviously Chax would love to be the ones to do the training for you, but whoever you pick, I really don't care, just pick a reputable company that can teach you how to do this properly, and it's going to pay huge dividends. The ROI is going to be really easy to write for that training budget. So, So to kind of summarize everybody, right, the Department of Justice has extended the deadline for the Title II regulations back a year, right? So the new date, Judy, you said it was April
24th, 2027.
2027. And for
April 26th.
For entities less than 50,000
April 26th, 2028.
2028. Yeah. So yeah, the deadline has been moved. That's the news for today. Judy, I want to thank you so much for all of your help getting this information out. Marty, thank you for your insight on this topic. It's been awesome conversation. And with that being said, my name is Chad Chilius, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.